For listening at your leisure at afr.net/podcasting. Practically every AFR program is posted shortly after it airs and is available anytime you want it on the podcast page at afr.net.
Godcasting.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to catch on.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues here on the American Family Radio Network for this Tuesday, April the 2nd, 2024. Okay, no more April Fool's jokes, people. That day's over.
Yes.
All right, so in studio with me is Wesley Wildman. Good morning, Wesley.
Good morning.
Fred Jackson.
Good morning, Tim.
And in Kansas City is our good buddy Ray Pritchard. Good morning, Ray.
Hey, Tim, how you doing today?
Doing well. It's a nasty weather across a lot of the country today. What about you there?
We had the nasty weather pass through last night. It was very warm the last few days, and then thunderstorms and rain, and then there was hail all around us. And now this morning it's 40 degrees and feels like 33. And as you have said, Tim, I do not receive this.
I know, right? 30. So it dropped from 70 to 33.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, maybe this is the last of winter.
I'm looking at the weather here in Tupelo,
leftovers.
and you definitely are sending a little bit of rain and a little bit of wind, but we're not getting a massive,
Not yet.
temperature drop.
Oh, the temperature drop, it's coming, my friend.
Yeah.
Your old man's
Yeah,
already
Wednesday.
looked.
Yeah, Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday it's going to drop pretty good. Wednesday and Thursday, comparatively speaking.
Well, today's Tuesday, so today's high where we live is 76, but it's dropping to 46 overnight, so 30-degree temperature, much like you experienced there in Kansas City.
Yeah. You know, when
Right.
it's 71 degrees in the morning at 4 o'clock, it's not right in March and even
That's right.
April in the Mississippi. It's not right.
Yep.
Okay, so fellers, get ready. Isolated thunderstorms this morning, then variable clouds during the afternoons with strong thunderstorms, damaging winds, large hail, and possibly a tornado.
Yeah.
Now, is that your opinion or is that the weather
No, this
opinion?
is straight off the Weather Channel.
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
Just kidding.
We're not receiving that.
Uh-uh.
You don't believe in science?
No, I think they
Huh?
get it wrong.
You're a science denier, are you?
I'm a weather denier.
Okay, weather denier. Chance of rain 100%. Anyway,
Don't believe it.
it is bad weather crossing a lot of the country. I'm looking now, Tennessee and Kentucky right now, parts of Illinois. Anyway,
But you're not a weatherman. You can
it's-
hide behind that,
it's,
right?
it's tornado season, right?
Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is.
Tornado season. All right. Well, we hope you stay safe and sound wherever you may be living today, and heed the warnings. Although watches don't make any difference to people who live in Tornado Alley, do they, Ray?
They do
Really?
not. I mean, Tornado Alley is North Texas, it's Oklahoma, it's up into Nebraska, and it is certainly here in Kansas. So, no, we don't make any difference in a watch and a warning.
I know I've had free people move to Mississippi here, and we're part of that Tornado Alley, but from other parts of the country, like the West Coast, and and then they get that first, the tornado watch,
Right.
and they're like, oh no, what do we do? Where do we hide? Tell me what we do. And I said, a
And by
watch.
then it's too late. Yeah.
I'm going like a watch. A tornado watch, you don't do anything.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Watch
A
some
tornado
TV.
warning, you may get.
That's a little different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes it cover.
And then
but-
if you see one, that's when we start
Right.
reacting.
But Ed and I have this joke about, if you get that beep go off, on your cell phone about a tornado warning at 2 a.m.
Right. What are you supposed to do? What can you do?
What? Yeah,
It's too risky. You don't want to lose your sleep. So
that's what I'm saying. Do you get out of you're nice and comfy in bed? Do you really want to seek cover?
when it's
Because
a
you got
low,
what 1 in 100 chance
That's
of being
right.
hit by a deadly tornado?
and you could get hit and still survive.
That's what I'm saying. You do have to weigh that out, in the middle of the night there.
You
But
do. I
that's-
got a question though,
yeah.
backing up a little bit. Did y'all? I obviously wasn't on Mondays. Did y'all happen to pull any April Fools on the radio yesterday?
No,
You
I don't think. Did we
spared
do
yourself?
anything April Fool's wise?
No.
Okay, good for y'all.
No.
Now we had some fools on. And it was April, and I'm not going to name who the fools were.
Yeah. Well,
Just saying. We're just saying.
Yeah, we're just saying.
okay.
All right. Well, listen, lots to talk about. Sandy Rios will be with us at the bottom of the hour. Sandy hadn't been on in a while, so we look forward to visiting with her. She's the number one podcaster on AFR.net, Sandy Rios. So a lot of you listen to her podcast 3 times a week, and we'll have her on live on the radio here. What's the first story, Fred?
All right. Not too many people in this country can write a check for $175 million, but Donald Trump did that last night. You may remember the appeals court there in New York gave him 10 days to come up with a $175 million bond that he had to post in order to appeal his case. This is the case of the Attorney General of New York going after Trump about, she said, over-evaluating his properties there.
Yeah, they call it business fraud, but
Yeah.
she's been targeting him since she was running for election.
Openly.
Yeah,
Targeting.
openly.
Yes. Jonathan Turley is a constitutional expert. He's used on Fox quite a bit, and he talks about this whole case, a bad case, a politically motivated case right from the beginning. Cut number 9.
No, we don't have a clear idea, but this clears the way for the court to finally look at what many of us view as an obscene judgment. I mean, this number was pulled out of nowhere. When you drill down on the order, there's really nothing there. I mean, the court basically makes a series of assumptions, in my view, speculations about how much he might have saved. But there were no victims here. There wasn't a single penny that was lost by anyone. The banks involved testified that they wanted more business from Trump. So to come up with this astronomical figure really shocks the conscience. Now, on appeal, he's going to have trouble with this New York law. It is unique. It doesn't require victims. It doesn't require losses. But they still have to justify the amount.
Right.
And that could go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and what they were talking about, you remember the judge in this case originally said that Trump had to post a bond of $454 million. And Trump's people said they went to all these bond agencies and nobody would guarantee that. And that's when they knocked it back to $175 million. Now, the case apparently will not be heard by the appeals court until September. And that's getting mighty close to Election Day.
Yeah. Well, so basically the bottom line is Mr. Trump, former President Trump, is going to challenge, is going to appeal, and he came up with the $175 million to do so. Now, should he win his appeal, he gets that money back, obviously.
That is correct.
And, I just wondered, in that kind of situation, can you get your lawyer's fees back, or do you know that if you win the appeal?
No, I think you pay your lawyers to defend you,
Now,
and they get to keep it.
Good night. Well, one other thing about that, is that appeal to the Supreme Court of the state of New York? Is that where that goes?
That is correct. It's the state court's appellate division.
All right.
I do believe, to your question, in some cases, if Trump were to go after, let's say he wins, let's say he gets his money back, I do think if he wanted to, I believe he could countersue for the trouble they've caused to get his lawyer fee back, but it's not part of the original agreement and process.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, all right, next story.
All right. President Joe Biden today is hosting a meeting at the White House with Muslim leaders.
Is he aware of this?
From across the country.
And they're going to talk
I would
about,
hope so.
And they're going to talk about the Transgender Visibility Day, right?
No, that would be an insult to
Oh,
Muslim
okay.
leaders.
We wouldn't want to do that.
It would be.
Yeah,
No.
But we'll do it on Easter, though.
right.
That's
Yeah,
right.
insult Christians.
Sorry, that was a lot right
You
there.
can just
Yeah.
insult Christians. You don't want to insult the Muslims.
Sure.
Well, and a lot of this comes as Ramadan is winding down, but also the fact that Muslim leaders from around the country are coming in. It has to do with Biden under fire from his Palestinian contingent in the Democratic Party and others that they're not happy with the Biden administration's support of Israel in the war against Hamas. Now, that support openly by the Biden administration has been dwindling. It was really interesting. Fox News put together a montage of Joe Biden from October 7th, when that massacre of the Israeli citizens occurred under the hands of the Hamas terrorists, what he had to say around October 7th, but have a listen to how his support for Israel has dwindled over time. Cut number 5.
My administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering. I come to Israel with a single message. As long as the United States stands, and we will stand forever, we'll not let you ever be alone. I have no notion that Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure innocents have been killed, and it's the price of waging a war. I'm of the view, as you know, that the conduct of the response in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, has been over the top. The major military operation in Rafah should not proceed without a credible plan for ensuring the safety and support of more than 1 million people sheltering there. They need to be protected. I told them, maybe some of the people, maybe you all should come to Jesus. Sir, just...
I didn't hear that last.
Well, in that little bit, you may remember when Joe Biden gave his State of the Union address, he was caught on a hot mic. He was asked by a reporter about responding to Israel, and what you probably couldn't make out there, Joe Biden said there's going to be a come to Jesus meeting with Netanyahu. That's what he was saying there.
What does that mean?
Well, he was trying...
I know what the term come
yes.
to Jesus means, but what do you think he's talking about right there?
Well, he's talking about the fact that he believes that Netanyahu should agree to a ceasefire immediately and withdraw Israeli forces from Gaza. And
has to release the hostages.
Right.
Yes. We're not hearing that, though.
Why not? Why is all the burden on Israel?
The burden's on Israel because of Joe Biden's politics right now in this country.
Yeah, and his politics are changing because of the pressure he's getting from
yes,
some of the Arab groups or
but,
what?
Oh,
Muslim groups?
there's no question. You've got the Rashida Tlaib and others. You've got the 100,000 Palestinians, Americans, who live in Michigan. During the Democrat primary there, 100,000 wrote in basically against Biden. Uncommitted. He had there. But also, he is losing support amongst even very liberal Democrats who are Jews and who still support Israel. One of those is Michael Rappaport. He was interviewed recently. Now, he has supported Biden. He voted for Biden, but not now. Cut number 12.
Political views have changed immensely. I will not vote for Joe Biden. At this point, when we're doing this interview, voting for Trump is on the table. People are like, what are you talking about? That's my reality. I will not support anybody who's anti-Israel. I will not support anybody that is anti-making America safe, that is cool with the fact that I got to show my ID at least 3 or 4 times at the airport, but it takes you 2 minutes to cross the border. I'm not down with police officers in the greatest city on earth getting beaten up.
Yeah, that's Michael.
He's a liberal.
Extremely. Wow. Extremely liberal. So this is what's happening, and then you've got now Democrats like James Carville saying Biden's in trouble. So he's got more and more Jews in the United States that traditionally vote Democrat are turning against him. James Carville is talking about the Democrat youth vote is beginning to wane for Biden. He believes, James Carville and others believe, that Biden is in real trouble.
Well, listen, I follow the Ray and Westy, I can comment on this. I about every other day or so, I click on the Real Clear Politics.
Yes.
Real Clear Politics, for those who don't know, website gives you a results from a collection of polls. Mm-hmm. So it's not just one poll. They combine a lot of polls to get a result.
That's right.
All right, and then so you can follow trends, and as of like the last day or two, in this Real Clear Politics tracking, former President Trump has been leading in almost all the swing states, Ray. Now, it's close.
Right.
It's like 2-3 points.
Right.
But, I'm just saying that when the Democrat strategists start saying Biden is in trouble, potentially in a lot of trouble, I think this polling I'm referring to bears this out, that Trump is beating him in the swing states. Go ahead.
We've been saying this for months now, but January's come and gone, February's come and gone, March is come and gone. Here we are in April. We're getting close now to the summer, into the fall elections. Right now, Trump is leading in Georgia, in Arizona, in Nevada, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, even in Pennsylvania, where they say it's very close. And you're right, Tim. It's a few percentage points. But this is one moment where James Carville is exactly right. The president is in great trouble all the way across the board. So, Tim, let me ask you a question that we have thrown around. When November comes around, is Joe Biden still going to be on the ballot? Is it too late for them to put anybody in there? And if they did, who would they replace him with?
Okay, well, I think back in the fall, I think I said 50-50 chance that Biden would not be the candidate for the Democrats in the presidential election. If I had to score that today, I'm going to say 75-25 he will be.
Yeah.
And probably he won't be only if his health deteriorates or something happens, puts him in the hospital for a month or something like I don't know. Or he just begins to show signs of mental decline that are dangerous. Okay, not just funny little slips here and there. I say funny. It's not funny, but you know what I'm saying. Innocent little faux pas. So I would say 75-25 he will be. I think the time for change would have been in December, January, okay, where the Democrats would have had time to get somebody else to be their candidate, be it Gavin Newsom, governor of California, which I don't think would be an upgrade in facing Trump. Now, I do think Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, this is my own personal opinion. Now, I could be wrong. I think she would have been a more formidable candidate to face Trump, but she would have needed to start in January to get her name recognition out there and to travel the country and to get an organization in place. But that didn't happen. The reason I say that is I think she could have won Michigan. She could have won Pennsylvania. She probably would have. She's a Midwesterner governor. She probably would have won Minnesota and Wisconsin. I think that's the reason I say she probably would have been a more formidable candidate than Gavin Newsom, who's a flaming liberal. Now she is too, but she hides it well and she presents herself well, and she is from a more conservative, reasonable state, that is overall Michigan. But she is Governor Lockdown. But nevertheless, that's what I call her. Mm-hmm. But I think she would have been a more formidable candidate than Biden going into November. But here we are, as you say, Ray. We're in April, and listen,
clock's ticking.
The clock's ticking. Let me just say this too. I think this means a lot of people have suspected. Well, who's Biden is the puppet. Who's the puppet master? I'm just going to say this. I don't think Biden has a puppet master. Mm-hmm. If he had a puppet master, the puppet master would have pulled him off the stage by now, right? Because he's a disaster as a candidate, and potentially a terrible disaster in November.
Sure.
So I think Biden calls his own shots, him and his wife, and that's it.
Yep. Well, yeah, or when people call shots outside of his circle, he doesn't know enough to care.
Okay, yeah. I would agree that he doesn't run the government,
sure,
in the sense that his underlings, they basically do what they want to.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he doesn't have any.
You know, he doesn't know, he doesn't care, and they're flaming liberals too.
Sure.
But as far as deciding will he or won't he run for president, I think that he has decided yes he is. Even if former President Obama told him privately, you don't need to do this, he said, I don't care what you think, I'm going on.
And
See
to
what
make
I'm saying?
and to make things worse for President Biden in November, there's been polls we discussed this morning that if RFK Jr. is on the ticket as an independent officially, that he would actually be a net loss for Biden.
He would hurt Biden worse than he would
Biden.
Trump.
Right.
Yeah.
Not that Biden needs any help getting worse,
And
but that will make.
hey,
it worse.
related to that, a story related to that is Biden refused to authorize Secret Service protection for RFK Jr., right, Fred?
That is correct. RFK was on Fox and Friends this morning, and he talked about that, cut number 4.
That's never happened in history.
Do you think he's behind that?
What?
Do you think Joe Biden is behind?
Of course he is.
Does he know that your dad was assassinated?
He has a bust of my father behind him at the Oval
So how does he
Office.
sleep at night?
Well, I don't know, but it's just not right. You know, all of these, the use of the courts, the use of prosecutors, the use of all these federal agencies to change our political landscape is wrong, and we should be debating about it.
Yeah, he had a whole lot more to say, but apparently protocol would call for RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., now that he is going to be on ballots, he's got a running mate to have Secret Service protection. And what he's saying is that Joe Biden has denied that.
Yeah. Wow. And he's probably polling, what, 10%?
12%. Some of the polls
12%?
were real clear, yes.
That would be easy. So Biden can let millions of people into our country illegally. We don't know who they are, a lot of criminals, and we can't give RFK Jr. Secret Service protection for a few months. Is that what you're telling me?
Yep. That's where
It's
we are.
shameful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, he's up over 8.5%, and it depends on what poll you look at. And that's his most recent bump came because of his announcement of his running mate.
Yeah, I don't even know who his running mate. I never heard of her.
Shahanan.
You ever heard of her, Ray?
Yeah, she's 38 years old. I guess worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but she has money to pump into his campaign. Beyond that, I don't understand that choice at all.
Listen,
Heard of her.
RFK Jr. is he's either a 5-star on issues or he's terrible.
Yeah.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
You get one issue and he's excellent.
Yeah.
And then you get another issue that conservatives care about,
Which makes him a true independent.
and they're going,
What do you do?
what? So he has some positives, but he has negatives too. Talking about RFK Jr.
Yes.
In terms of traditional Republican voters, how they might look at him as
He stood hard against the forced vaccinations.
he did.
Right.
That's big on that. He's really hard on Joe Biden for trying to control social media. And he's, freedom of speech.
Yes, and he's against the heavy-handed use of the federal government.
Oh, yes.
He's really libertarian in that way, Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you can see where he's going to get, if he makes it onto the ballot in enough states, and that, of course, is a real question. But let's suppose he's on the ballot in most of the battleground states. I think he's going to take far more votes away from Joe Biden than he is from Donald Trump.
Right.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. All right, we will take a short time out right here. Sandy Rios will be with us in a few minutes. We look forward to visiting with Sandy right here on Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Stay with us.
It's my turn. here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven, but only those who do what my Father in heaven wants them to do. Let me tell you a true story. Once there was a church that wanted to construct a new building. Inquiring around as to who they could get to do a certain job in that construction, they were given the name of a certain man. The officials of the church called the gentleman, asked him if he could do the job, and settled on a price. When the work had gone far enough for this man to come and begin his job, the church officials had to call him about 3 times to get the man to the construction site. He held up progress for about 2 or 3 days, and after he got to the site and got on the job, he was met by the church minister. The minister remembered meeting the gentleman before at a downtown store and remembered that the man had impressed him as having an excellent knowledge of the Bible. Upon recognizing the man, the minister was sure that the church had gotten the best man for the job. After he had finished with this first part of the job, he sent the church a bill. The bill was considerably higher than the amount that had been agreed upon, but the church said nothing and paid the man the full amount. They thought perhaps this was to cover part of the labor that was to be done in the future. When it came time to call the man back to do the next part of his work, it took several phone calls to get him to come. He again held up the progress of other workers, but finally he came, did his job as he worked very slowly, and the other workers managed to work around him. During this time, the minister of the church was surprised to find out from the man that he was a teacher of a Sunday school class. When it came time to call the man back a 3rd time and get him to do his work so that finishing touches could be put on the building, he was very slow about responding. The church officials called him several times, and each time he promised he'd be there the next day. Getting near to the scheduled date that the building was to be used, the officials explained the situation to the man again, and he promised them he would be finished so that they could move in as scheduled. He came to the building, worked a short time, and left. Finally, in desperation, the church officials called another man to finish the job. They postponed their date of occupation of the building, since it was apparent that the inefficiency of the first man meant the building could not be occupied on the scheduled date. Now, the second man who came to do the work evidently didn't know much about the Bible, didn't teach a Sunday school class, cussed nearly as much as a sailor, and smoked like a garbage pit. But he came promptly when he was called. He worked quickly and efficiently, stayed overtime to speed the progress, and presented the church with a very reasonable bill. A week after the scheduled date, the building was occupied. The first man happened upon the job just prior to occupation, saw what the other man had done, what he'd been hired to do, went home, and sent the church another bill in an amount far more than that agreed upon. Not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, but he who does. That's what the Galilean said. Now I have a question for you to ponder, and it's this. Which one of these fellows came nearer to living what the Galilean taught?
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Psalm 139, 23, and 24.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. I'm Tim with Wesley, Fred, and Ray. And we thank you for listening to us each day here on American Family Radio. Hey, real quickly, outside of the world of politics and government and world events, I guess it's falling into the national events, I watched the Iowa versus LSU women's game last night. I don't know what the numbers were. They were expecting 9 or 10 million people. It was supposed to be the most watched women's game ever in college basketball. But anyway, even if you don't follow the game, this Caitlin Clark girl for Iowa is one of the most amazing basketball players I've ever seen. Yeah. And she scored 41 points last night, leading her team over LSU. And LSU was a defending national champion. I mean, they're excellent basketball team. She's going to play. I say she's going to play. The Iowa team did great, okay? So it's not just her, but she obviously is the star. But if you haven't seen her play, do yourself a favor. This, I guess it's, is it Friday?
I have it right here.
Is it Friday night?
5th.
Huh?
The 5th, April 5th. That's Friday.
Friday night they play at UConn. UConn's got a great player too. But anyway, it's gonna. She is just amazing.
Yeah. Is that how the women's bracket play out? They go
Friday, Sunday.
Well, yes, but they don't have a one court where they all play.
Yeah, they do. Final Four.
Okay. You said go to UConn, so I thought they go to.
Did I say go to UConn?
Yeah, but yeah. So I guess what I'm asking is, so there's at what point? I know early on though they don't play all 64 games in one stadium.
They don't. They do it just like the men's.
Okay, gotcha.
Just like the men's, they divide it around the country, but then they come together for the Final Four.
I gotcha.
The Final Four, but I'm just saying, do yourself a favor and watch Iowa play and watch her. She is spectacular.
I don't follow it like you guys do, but I have watched the highlights from last night.
Yeah.
She's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. The thing about it is, if she gets within half court, after she passes half court, then Ray.
She's in range right there. She's in range.
Yeah. And it's not like they're not guarding her. And
I know. They were all over last night, and she'd take one little step forward. She'd be, what is the 3-point line is what, 21, 22 feet?
Something like that.
She was taking shots from
25.
26, 27. One of them was from 30 feet away.
I know. I'm not watching the game with Allison on my iPad at dinner, and I'm saying, look at this girl. Watch this. This is amazing.
I know.
Like a magician almost.
Yeah.
Well, they were tied, 45-45.
At half.
LSU played good, and Angel Reese is the superstar for LSU. And
right.
In the early going, she was great, and so it's tied up. So you think it's going to come down to the wire. It was almost as if Caitlin Clark said, no, I'm going to put this team on my back.
Yeah.
We are not going to get beat today. And in that third quarter, bam, bam, she was from downtown, as they say. Okay. She was hitting those shots. She is something to behold. Kind of reminded me of Steph Curry.
Yeah, just like Steph Curry, 41 points. It just anyway, it's
there's a phenomenal. So yeah, she's you got to watch her Friday night.
Yeah, they play UConn on Friday night, but and then South Carolina's undefeated. They haven't been beaten like in 27 years or something like that.
long time.
So it's going to be NC State. NC State, North Carolina State. They have their girls and their boys teams made the Final Four.
Right.
Wow.
The chances of that happening are almost
in the same year.
If somebody, I'm not a betting man, but if you were betting Vegas, I bet the chances of that happening were 2%, 1% probably.
Right.
That would happen to have a men's and a women's basketball team make the Final Four from the same school. So I don't know which one you go to if you're a rabid fan. Maybe you go to both, right?
I think you'll be able to do both. Yeah.
All right. Well, one of our popular, maybe our most popular, I think, podcast here on American Family Radio is Sandy Rios. Sandy Rios 24/7 podcast on American Family Radio. Sandy joins us ever so often here to talk about various and sundry issues, and she joins us now. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Tim and gentlemen. Hey, you know what? I was just thinking, if I were a betting person,
yes,
I would have bet 10 years ago that there's no way you guys would be talking about women's basketball. That's just stunning to me. I'm
Full
so out of the
circle.
loop. I would say there's two things I can't talk about, sports and dogs. And so you chose, but I do know that for years, women's sports were like a snore zone for men.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's how but when you see greatness, you have to appreciate it, and that's why I was talking about Caitlin Clark from Iowa. It's just she makes you want to watch, even if you don't normally pay attention to women's college basketball. All right, now you do in the Olympics, though, don't you, Sandy? You watch all the gymnasts and all that, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And I grew up with basketball. I'm from Southern Illinois,
Yes.
which was as big a basketball
Yes.
crazy people as Mississippi. I mean, we had great teams, and
Yes.
no, I do understand basketball, but I
okay.
just was remarking that you guys would watch
Right.
women's basketball.
I know, right?
Let it be said.
So-
I would have made a lot of money if
So
I had known.
What sports? I know you're a music person, but did you play any sports growing up?
You know, women didn't do sports when I was a kid. Ladies didn't do that, and it's just it wasn't until I started running in my 30s.
Marathons
probably.
or what?
No, I should say jogging. I did run some races, compete,
Okay.
but I was a jogger. But I love that. I did that for years. And I know this is not a sport. Well, maybe it is. I did do weightlifting, but I didn't compete. But I did used to. I was in the gym a lot because I loved it. I'd
By the
never
way,
done anything like that.
You can say running with us. We're not going to question that.
I
Running
just
You
what?
can say
don't want
running.
to
You don't have to say
overstate.
jogging.
Oh, jogging, running.
Well, I was married. You know, my first husband ran the Olympic Games, so when I say running,
I know.
there's I was not that.
We're not the technical people here.
Okay, there's a reason why we call Sandy Sandy Sunshine, because she's always got something positive and encouraging to share. She's the Joel Osteen of politics, ladies and gentlemen. Sandy, I'm only teasing. Sandy, we do need to get serious for a moment here, because you're sounding the alarm. I know I've heard the FRC and some others sounding the alarm on the World Health Organization story. What's that about?
Well, the World Health Organization is part of the UN. They've been swinging away for many, many decades, but they've been really swinging away since COVID. And the head of the World Health Organization is, now I can't, his last name's, I'll try this, Dr. Tedros, that's what people call him, but it's Adhanom Ghebreyesus. Yeah, so it's something like that. He's the Director General, and I want to tell you about him also. I will just stop and say that he's a communist. He was very involved in Ethiopia and headed the Communist Party there, and he has great plans for us. So we first kind of learned about him in the COVID situation when they were doing the directives. Remember, our CDC and our health organizations were taking their directive from the World Health Organization, who told us China had nothing to do with the outbreak of COVID and the virus, and the lab had nothing to do with it. And they were the ones that, suggested these masks and the distancing and all of that. Their advice was terrible. I mean, they called that the protocol. We know that. They gave terrible advice. We also know now that they are controlled by the Chinese. So that's probably one of the big reasons why they did not want to blame the virus on that lab in China. Now they've got two proposals. One used to be called a treaty. Now they're calling it, I think, an agreement or initiative, because if it's called a treaty, our Senate has to pass it or approve it by 3/5. So they've made sure that that's been changed. And what we have now is we have the House of Representatives, who are completely against the World Health Organization and what they're trying to do, which I'll tell you in a minute. They have want to defund it. They passed a bill to that effect, an amendment, I think, to a foreign ops authorization bill. But the Senate, of course, is the Senate. And many of them are telling us that the Constitution will protect us, but that is an abject lie. And this is what we're worried about. They want to take over our entire health care. Yeah, I mean, internationally, but ours too, and give Dr. Tedros the power to declare a health emergency anywhere on the globe whenever he deems that's possible. They can dictate to us mask mandates and forced vaccinations, quarantines, lockdowns. They also want, Tedros has said this, I just played a clip this morning on my podcast. they want to implement a massive surveillance state using digital IDs. They want to do vaccine passports. They have wonderful plans for us. They're also they can even call the climate a medical emergency. And if they do that, they could shut down our borders. They can control what medicine our doctors can give people. And here's the thing, Tim. You guys might remember there was a big fight years ago over international courts coming into the United States and having power over our people. One of the issues was them judging our soldiers for how they fought on the battlefield overseas. And there was a big pushback against that until Obama came in. Well, this is the same thing but different. This is a UN organization, the World Health Organization, coming in to dictate to us, shut down commerce, close our borders, mask us, force vaccinations, dictate what medicines we can have, track our social media. It's a nightmare. It truly is a nightmare. And our politicians are not taking this serious. Well, the House is, the Senate is not. Although there are some champions, Ron Johnson, Nevada just went right. Mike Lee is really fighting, and others. Utah. Yeah. Thank you. They're really fighting. So we have some champions, but we don't have enough of them in the Senate. So it's I'm doing all the talking here, but I'll just say it's kind of being left to the states. And some of the states, like Florida, has in the process of passing a bill that would prevent those any of that from applying to people in Florida, and Louisiana's on their way to doing the same thing. So there's more to say, but I'll take a breath.
Well,
and if you guys have a question,
I want. Why is it? This is the first time hearing about that. I heard about all this when COVID was more in the mainstream media, obviously during 2021 to 2022. But I thought they had let this go from a push and policy standpoint, but because the majority of Americans understand that COVID is not as serious as they made it sound, the death count, all those kind of things. So are you saying that they're still trying to push the ID and all that?
Yes, and I'm saying it's going to be
word.
a done deal as of May. You see, the thing of it is, this stuff will be instituted if the Senate doesn't stop them.
Sure.
And we can't get the Senate to care. And so I'm just telling you, this is going into effect. It's not optional. And here we are in an election, unless we can stop them in our states, unless we can, have the Senate see the light for change. I mean, I think people have to contact their senators and say, you have to take a stand. The other thing, Wesley, this is all being done in secret. And like if you Google anything like this, you won't find it.
Well, I'm trying and I can't.
Yeah, because you know why? This is the censorship.
Yeah.
Nothing about COVID, anti-COVID, nothing about this.
So
Facebook censoring also. So people don't have any idea.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing, Sandy, it's Fred here.
Hi, Fred.
This is the kind of thing that Michelle Bachmann, she has gone to Geneva. She has been chronicling this and warning people about it. This is serious. If you want a demonstration of what happened in COVID back 3 years ago, Canada was an example. I have relatives in Nova Scotia who were not allowed to travel to the next state, the next province. They could
because of that.
They couldn't move out of Nova Scotia. I have relatives. They weren't even allowed to go visit other relatives down the street. The only thing they could do is sit outside on the step and talk through a window. These are the kinds of restrictions that a Biden administration wants to see. Folks, it's all about control.
One thing I failed to mention, because that reminds me, thinking of Canada, Fred, because my son is there in Vancouver. They remember how banks froze the money of these truckers.
The truckers,
and they couldn't pay their rent. Their families didn't have money. Well, this is part of this thing too. This digital ID will track nearly every aspect of your life, and it can even sever you from your bank account and credit card.
Yeah.
And so if you don't comply, you will just be completely controlled. And I'm telling you, this is going to in effect in May.
Well, what's the difference between that and what they do in China?
Nothing. And as a matter of fact, there's a social score is in this mix too, where you can't buy or sell or do anything depending on, or it depends on your social score, meaning what you think and what you say. And if you don't have the right thoughts and you don't say the right things, you will be punished, cut off from your money. I mean, this is like, this reminds me of a book called Revelations. Doesn't it remind you guys of that?
Yeah. Where can you read more about this, Sandy? Do you have a story up, or do you know?
Yes. Well, I'll just tell. I don't yet because I just finished. I just got finished a recording. We're going to air this tomorrow, actually Wednesday. But the information can be found at sovereigntycoalition.org. Sovereignty, SOVEREIGNTY, coalition.org. And there's all kinds of information there because Frank Gaffney is one of the big players in the Sovereignty Coalition, and many other people. And actually, I wish I. Yeah.
All right. So this is, folks, when you hear the term globalist, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about here, where there are people around the world who think alike, and in the U.S. they're globalist. They don't consider the U.S. Constitution first. They don't consider America first. They consider the global thinking first, and the global control, because they are, quote, progressive, and they, quote, are experts, and, quote, they know better. And so they want to set policy for the world. How do you do that? You get the different countries to surrender their sovereignty. Okay, and that's what's being attempted here. Again, with the what would happen here is the WHO, the World Health Organization, would usurp even the authority of the Center for Disease Control. Or
yes, anything American. Can you imagine how they're salivating to get this kind of control of American money and dollars? And of course, we're already experiencing that in other areas. But this is so dangerous.
So how do we stop it?
Well, the way we stop it, there's some things. I think the states need to step in. We need to lobby our legislators, our governors, to get involved in this, like ASAP.
I can't imagine there's not one red state governor that would agree to this. I know that. So
Ron DeSantis is already all over it, and so is the new governor of Louisiana. And I don't know about Texas, but there are a couple of other states, but they're not enough.
Right.
I mean, if you live in those states, thank goodness.
Right.
We need to get all over our local legislators. Also, I think we should put pressure on our senators. I don't care what they're doing or not doing. I think they had a vote of 47 to 49. And of course, the larger group was the Democrats who were voting, and they don't want to do anything about this.
All right. So we can get to. So if I call my senator's office, my U.S. senator's office, I need to tell them, what would you say, Sandy, to be concise?
I guess I would ask, first of all, what is my senator's position on the World Health Organization?
Okay.
And if they say to you something like, our senator believes the Constitution, it doesn't need to be a treaty. That's the key thing in the Senate. This should be a treaty. We should not embrace something like this unless our 3/5 of our Senate, as it states in our Constitution, dictates that.
Okay.
So they just need to make sure, and if they waffle on it and tell you it doesn't matter or this is not going to happen, that's a really big red flag. And I guess you just tell them, look, you have a responsibility to protect our country. That's what you're elected for. Whatever words you have, I always believe in being respectful, but boy, you can lay somebody out with the truth without being disrespectful.
Well, we have an election coming up, obviously, in November. What are the distinct differences between the previous President Trump administration and the current Biden administration on our relationship as a nation with who?
Well, a big contrast. President Trump defunded who? Withdrew. We're the ones who support them the most. Now it's the Chinese stepping in to help when we withdrew our money. But one of the first things that Joe Biden did when he came back into office was rescind all of that and start refunding.
Yeah, Joe Biden is a globalist. He thinks like that. Huh?
Yes, he does. So he's all for it. And the other thing I want to say in regard to the election, many people are concerned that you might recall that the last election there was an outbreak of COVID and shutdowns, and then we had to have tons of mail-in ballots. Anybody remember that? I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we have an election this year, and we've got this thing. They're trying to push it down our throats in May, and we have an election in November. What do you think they're going to do? All Tedros has to do is, announce a health emergency, and we are shut down. And we won't be, and we are forced to shut down. I guess unless you live in Florida or Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're facing.
Yeah.
It's really very, very dangerous.
Okay.
And I'm surprised that everybody's not just on their soapboxes shouting it to the rooftops because we have to get over or beyond this censorship that we're experiencing now on social media.
Well, that's because the big social media companies they think like the globalists do. They think like Biden does, and that's the reason for the. Go ahead, Wesley.
I do want to correct Sandy here. I don't get to do this much. Okay. Are you ready, Sandy?
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Ready?
Florida was the only one that you said Florida, Louisiana, and my neighborhood are the ones that won't shut down. Because if you live close to me,
your neighborhood sovereign.
I'm not doing it.
Oh, okay.
No,
as for your acre.
Yes, right. There will be no
participating. Okay.
It will be.
You better put a lot of cash away there.
Yeah. That's right.
I mean, this is how bad it's going to get. I think,
Sure.
and I think it's inevitable. I don't think it's an overstatement.
You got the red states that you mentioned.
You mean inevitable that they're going to try to take over, not inevitable that we can't. I mean, stop it.
I'm not saying inevitable yet, but it is inevitable if somebody doesn't stop it. And so the states have to take a stand, and so does the Senate. And I don't think that's likely.
All right, let me put it. Let's get that story that Sandy's talking about and post it on our Facebook, our Today's Issues Facebook page, and so we can have it. Ray, anything to say or questions for Sandy before we end this hour?
To Sandy's point about the Book of Revelation, everything she said is 100% right, and the movements here are predicted in the Book of Revelation. So Sandy, just want to say amen to what you said and tell everybody, if you doubt me, if you doubt Sandy, just pull out your Bible and read Revelation 13. It was written down there 2,000 years ago.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you, Ray.
Okay, Sandy, tell us, the podcast, 3 days a week, you're still doing 3 days a week, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, and I've got some great shows. Great guests. Okay, you always ask me that, and I go,
yeah.
Scientists Speak, Part 1, The Case for Realism, on the whole issue of climate change. And that's fascinating. I talked to a scientist. I did 2 days with them. And then I did a special Easter broadcast that's still relevant. I don't usually do this, Tim, but I actually played, it was mostly my music and me talking. And if people want to hear some of that, I've had some great response, not from the music, but from the inspiration of it. So if you need a boost and need to just really worship, that's a great thing. All Things French with Parisian Kate Pesset. I talked to a Parisian recently. And then, of course, I talked to a filmmaker, Joel Gilbert, who's written a book and also done a film called Michelle Obama 2024 because he thinks she's going to run. And that was fascinating.
Okay.
And then medical students are in real crisis right now because of the COVID restrictions. They're still being forced to be vaccinated for the COVID.
Oh, my goodness.
And so Professor William Jacobson joined me for that. There's a lot.
Okay,
so
if you want to listen to Sandy's podcast, just go to our website, afr.net, click on podcast, and you'll see the banner with Sandy's picture on there, and Sandy Rios 24/7, and all her podcasts are there. Her three times a week release of her podcast is there. Sandy, are you familiar with something called the City Journal?
Yes, I am. It's great.
Okay, I'm sitting here looking at an article about what you're talking about. I just typed in who. And
you know what? They're a great source.
Okay.
Post that. They're a great source.
Okay, it's the City Journal. It's the Who's Power Grab by Jonathan Tierney.
Perfect.
Tierney, I guess is his name. Anyway, we'll post that too. And all right, Sandy, take care. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Talk to you guys soon.
Go out and shoot some threes now. Okay? All right.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family,
freedom. American Family Radio.
In Psalm 139, David writes that God formed his inward parts, that he was knit together in his mother's womb. He was fearfully and wonderfully made. What was true of David is surely true of you and me. In fact, it's true of every man and woman, every boy and girl, and every baby born and unborn. A thought from American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Israel wants to dismantle the UN agency handling relief for Palestinians following allegations by Israel that some of its employees helped Hamas carry out the October 7th attacks. But the State Department is still showing its support for the UN Relief and Works Agency. Jillian Turner has more from the State Department.
The UN agency has really been beset by this major scandal since January, the beginning of the year, when it was revealed some of its staffers were actually complicit in Hamas's October 7th terrorist attack. So now Israel is putting forward this official request via a proposal to the UN that they do away with this agency once and for all. The State Department is standing by UNRWA, saying that the group is really the only hope now to try and prevent a complete famine inside Gaza. So now the UN Secretary General insists UNRWA is a lifeline of hope, providing education for more than 500,000 students. UNRWA must be allowed to continue providing vital services to keep hope flowing.
Former President Donald Trump is back on the campaign trail today in Michigan and Wisconsin, while President Biden stays at the White House with nothing on his schedule. Both candidates are discussing what they say are the most important issues ahead of the election. Hillary Vaughn has more.
Trump will give a speech addressing, quote, Biden's border bloodbath. While here at the White House, they are staying on message, insisting it's Trump who created the chaos at the border and is refusing to fix it. As President Biden lays low today with no public events or campaign stops, privately, Democrats are stressing about how to bring in new young voters without accidentally encouraging young people who might end up voting for Trump. The Washington Post reports a confidential memo circulated among top Democratic donors, warning them that encouraging mass new voter registration of young voters might come back to bite Biden by signing up potential Republicans.
3 teenage girls have been arrested in Washington, D.C. for beating a disabled man to death last October. This comes as Mayor Muriel Bowser is expected to unveil a proposal that would hold parents legally accountable if their children miss too many days of school or if they get arrested. Meanwhile, a new report finds 60% of students in Washington, D.C. public schools are chronically absent. D.C. crime activist Roland Moten says this is what happens when you don't enforce rules and laws.
Well, this comes from more than a decade of being lax in enforcing policies that used to exist in Washington, D.C. I remember coming up as a child in Washington, D.C. If you missed 13 days, you were in front of a judge explaining why you missed 13 days. And sometimes it's something going on that you need help with and you get the service. But sometimes you're neglecting your children, and the neglect shows up in court. It shows up with 64-year-old men being killed. It shows up with people stealing cars while they should be in school.
The New Hampshire House of Representatives passed a bill that would prevent some males who try to pretend to be women from competing in interscholastic girls' sports.
It's New Hampshire House Bill 1205. Tom Joyce is a reporter for the New Boston Post. He tells AFN this bill would bring back common sense.
The bill would apply to students in grades 5 through 12 and require them to compete on the teams based on their biological sex rather than, so-called gender identity.
The bill passed narrowly with a vote of 189 to 182. All of the Republicans voted in favor. All of the Democrats voted against it. If the bill becomes law, Joyce said it would be unique.
This is one of the states where you've had many instances of males competing in girls' sports that identify as transgender and doing quite well. Many of the states that have enacted the bans, the lawmakers have had a hard time citing local examples of this issue happening.
But he did name several instances of female-identifying males who became high-placing athletes. Some include Cece Telfer, Lane Jocelyn, and Parker Terrell.
The transgender athlete thing is a real serious problem here. It's crazy that it's such a partisan divide up there on this issue when nearly 70% of Americans agree that males should not be competing in girls' sports. It should be a common sense thing that, Democrats and Republicans can come together and both support.
I'm Bronson Woodruff.
More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Thoughts of the child you were carrying keep pouring over in your mind. A deep, unrelenting sadness overshadows your days, and you wonder if you will ever feel whole again. There is hope and healing from a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline, 866-482-LIFE, and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential, and we will help you find healing. 866-482-LIFE.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. I'm Tim Wildman with Wesley Wildman and Ray Pritchard. Ray's in Kansas City. We're in Tupelo, and in Tupelo with us now, Fred got out of the chair, and Chris Woodward stepped in. How you doing, Chris?
Good morning. And he promised me over the break that this was not going to just be another day for him. This is going to be his best Tuesday on the radio, and he's brought one of the most important stories of the day.
I'll take that and raise you one.
Okay.
This is going to be the best Tuesday I've done this month.
You know what? Oh, I see what you did there. You had me going there for a minute. Now, but I tell you what, I like that attitude.
Oh yeah.
Huh?
I did get a degree from the People's University.
You tackle the day, Chris.
I try.
You just wait for the first
right,
story.
Ray?
That's it. I like it.
When you're 5'0" and you got a lot of heart, you tackle everything.
That's right. He's sorted through the stories, and when we thought we had every story covered,
we do have this one.
We do.
Speaking of pestilence, over to you, Chris.
Yeah, we're talking about Revelation in the last hour with Randy. This sounds like something from what went down in Egypt.
You tell us about it, Ray. You can be the first to comment on this story right here.
All right.
Go ahead, newsman Chris.
Yeah, this is the Fox headline: Cicada invasion. Trillions of noisy flying insects to swarm U.S. for first time in 221 years. Apparently, there's going to be two different broods of cicadas, something that has not risen from the ground simultaneously since Thomas Jefferson was president. The list goes on there. The South is one of the areas that is expected to see a lot of these critters, bugs, insects.
All right, go ahead, Ray.
Now, I wouldn't know about this except in 1989, 35 years ago, my wife and I moved up to Chicago, where I took a pastorate of a church in Oak Park, Illinois. And one of the things they told me is get ready for the cicadas.
Mm-hmm.
I said, the what? I never even heard the term before. The cicadas are coming because, and Chris, this relates to your story. What's happening here is there are two different breeds. Mm-hmm. Is that the right word? Two different varieties of cicadas, the 13-year kind and the 17-year kind. And the 17-year kind are mostly up in the Midwest, in the Chicago area, and it happened that in the spring of 1990 into the summer, all of a sudden, Tim, these are
what do they look like?
Well,
I would say crickets.
That's
crickets and
cricket.
locusts. It's like a cricket and a locust had a baby.
Oh. and they buried the egg in the ground, and the egg stayed there for 17 years. And then in the spring of 1990, all of a sudden, the earth began to move everywhere under your feet. In Oak Park, you could see cicadas, you could hear them. And they don't last too long. They sort of come out and do their thing, and then they die. And you don't see them again for 17 years. But what's happened is, Tim, there's another variety, the 13-year variety. And I guess this is what's happening. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but here in 2024, no, they said this because these are two prime numbers. I'm sorry, I've forgotten what prime numbers are. But there's the 13-year variety and the 17-year variety, and they never hit on the same year except once every 215 or 17 years. The last time it happened was when Thomas Jefferson was president.
Yeah, I've shared a link to what we're discussing on our Facebook page. I'll put it in the comments section as well. If you will click on that link, scroll down and you'll see a map of the United States where all these bugs are supposed to be an issue for us in the not too distant future.
Now, just so you know,
I got a lot to say about this,
Sure.
but you go ahead, Wesley.
All right. I've only got one thing to say about this. The one thing I got to say, for those in Mississippi, if you call this a locust, you're gonna get called out by me. Okay, I've been called out because it's not a locust, it's a cincadus. Okay,
it's not a locust.
It's
It's
not
a
a
what?
locust. It's a cincadus. That's the name of it, right? Am I saying it right?
Cicada.
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 Let's go with so cicadas is the correct word. And by the way, on a more serious note, a couple of years back we had these in close to our house, and you could walk outside at any point in the day, and you could hear the racket that they were putting off.
Mhm.
And I called my neighbor who lives a little over 3 miles from me. It's the first I noticed it. And I said, "What is that noise? Do you hear that?" It's a constant noise. Like, it didn't go away, and it was, once you heard it.
Was it louder than crickets?
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's one of those things that, one of those noises that if you're distracted and you never heard it the first time, it's kind of background noise. But then once you notice it, you can't unnotice it, and it's a constant. So I called him. I said, "What is that noise?" He was like, he went outside and listened for a second. He said, "Oh yeah, yeah." He meant cicadas, but he called it locusts at the time. But once you hear the sound that it makes, you can't unhear it, and it's a constant.
So it's not locust, Ray.
It's not locust.
That's
but
right.
what Chris said, it's kind of like what would happen if crickets and locusts got
Yeah.
together.
When a
Well,
cricket and a
Mississippi
locust
all
love
the
each
same.
other very much. Yes.
Well, cicadas. Okay.
They're coming. They are coming.
All right. So if you tell your
Trillions
wife
of
the
them.
cicadas are in the backyard, she's going to say, "Well, tell them to come back. I'm not dressed."
That's right.
And
Fried
listen, I'm looking at.
cicadas?
This is this going to be all over the country or just in some regions now of the country? Of this one.
I can answer that. Looking
go
at the map that Fox has, it has some parts of Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, Louisiana, pretty much on over east. Michigan, especially the Upers up there near Canada, you'll be scot-free here. New
So
York.
when does this start now?
Oh, in the coming weeks.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm looking at a story out of Ohio from Ohio State University, and they show you how to barbecue these things. You put them on a grill.
That's right.
Looks like to me.
Barbecue. Would you eat a barbecued cicada?
I would do it to say that I did it.
Yeah. Dip it in hot sauce.
That's it.
Hey, you put some Chick-fil-A sauce on it, it'll be all right.
Listen,
Or cover it with chocolate, maybe. I don't know.
I know. I'll take a chance on food every once in a while, but I don't know. Something that hibernates for 17 years, grilling it and cooking it, I just.
They don't live for more than a month and a half or so.
That's sad.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
It's
You think
short.
you sleep for 17 years?
17 years,
You come
right.
out. You come out for spring and you get a 1 month.
Yeah,
That's your lifespan.
For those in the area, and this may be the case in other parts of the country, but if I've been outside many times and they like to crawl on pine trees and they leave their scale like a snake would, so you'll see
Yeah.
the scale
Oh, yeah.
of it on the side of a tree.
Well, so the cicadas are coming, and it's any day now. Is that right, Chris?
Yes.
And a large swath of America on this one, huh?
Oh, yeah.
You have the
yeah.
17-year and the 13-year variety, huh? Right?
Here's the map,
Right,
Dad.
right. And it's going to happen again in 2022.
Kind of like an eclipse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just comes every 20 years or so, 17.
If you're listening to us in Memphis, you're going to have this. If you're in the Mississippi Delta,
It looks
you're
like
gonna
it
have
runs from
Illinois.
It looks like it runs
Indiana.
from Wisconsin down to Texas, and then over into the southeast part of the country for the most part.
And we're past April Fools too.
This could
This is
cause even
true.
more
Right.
people to go to
This is
Florida.
true.
This is we're not pulling
go
an
to
April
Florida.
Fools here.
Yeah, Florida
Move to
looks
Florida.
like Florida doesn't have any.
Yeah.
They're not expecting any cicadas. So Ron
No.
DeSantis may be welcoming more people.
Well, that's what happens when you do things the right way.
Yeah.
That's right.
Florida.
Even the cicadas stay away.
Until you get to August, and then you got hurricanes.
Yeah, that's true.
No place is safe on this
No, it'll be
Globe. All right, what's your next story, Chris?
Well, cicadas, from cicadas to self-driving semi-trucks. A lot of people are unaware of this. I think more people are familiar with the idea of self-driving cars, and companies have been testing those vehicles for a while now in big cities like San Francisco.
Hold on a second. Let me survey the panel here.
Okay.
Does anybody, Ray, Chris, Wesley, I don't, Brent, Creeley, our producer, does anybody know anybody that has a self-driving car?
No, I don't. I don't know anybody.
Anybody?
No.
Okay.
I do not.
Okay, go ahead.
Not personally. But this issue here, and it's a New York Post article that I'll share in a moment. Self-driving semi-trucks are the future of U.S. transport, and they've already hit the road. Apparently, a couple of companies, big tech firms, Aurora Innovation and Kodiak Robotics, have been working on getting some semi-trucks, self-driving semi-trucks between Dallas and Houston, which is a distance of a couple of 100 miles, and they've been running goods up and down the highway there, and it's a test. They're
already doing
in other
this?
parts. Yes.
Where?
Between Dallas and Houston. A new class of self-driving trucks will hit the road solo, sans human chaperones, as two
A
major
new
tech
class
firms.
is opposed to the old class.
Yeah, it has been tested somewhat thus far. The firm now plans to have 20 autonomous vehicles operating a 240-mile stretch of road between Dallas and Houston.
What do you think about that, Ray?
You know, I'm going to have to think twice next time I want to drive from Dallas to Houston.
You got a ghost.
I know.
Driving a truck.
That causes a wreck in and of itself.
Right.
You're looking to see, wait, what just happened?
You're
So
going to rubberneck that.
Do they set up a mannequin or something where the driver should be?
Like
yeah.
like a COVID mannequin for the stands.
Well,
papered off.
Let me ask you this: 20 years from now, are we going to have? Are the roads going to be filled with driverless automobiles?
Probably.
I would say a sizable chunk of cars in 20
Seriously?
years will be self-driving. Yes.
Is
I'm
that for
asking
the
your
panel?
opinion.
You want me now?
Each individual opinion here.
Okay, so my response to that is that technology and advancement has its place and its benefits. However, when it's done at full scale and the removal of humans, it fails every time. And just one quick example, because it's recent. Look at self-checkout. We covered this story a couple weeks back. Self-checkout, when it was done on a mass scale, it failed. For different reasons. They're unforeseen and things you can't predict, but if you remove humans from the equation altogether, it fails.
Let me tell
Hollywood
you, okay, I'm skeptical that Americans will convert to this automated, what do you call it? Self-driving automobiles?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's the reason, is that, number one, people are scared. Do you want to get in a car where you have absolutely no control? I don't care what kind of computer system they say is flawless or whatever. Most people don't want to get in an automobile and give up control of their driving ability.
Right.
Secondly, people like to drive. A lot of people, they enjoy the driving. Third, is that if you say you're going to not be able to drive, that's related to the second reason. I just think people are going to be really skeptical about trusting a car that they have no control over. I guess you could have a car with self-driving when you want to be, like in, quote, autopilot mode.
Tesla does allow you to override the autopilot feature.
Yeah, you're going to have to give people that option when they want to. But anyway, so already in the U.S., we have 18-wheelers operating between Houston and Dallas that are driverless trucks.
Yeah, founded in 2017 by former Uber execs, Google self-driving project and Tesla, Aurora has been training its driverless rigs in Texas since 2020.
How do you train a driverless one, though, with no driver?
All right.
You tell Optimus Prime to go over there.
I got two other words for people who think we're going to convert to driverless automobiles. The metric system, which is actually three words.
Yeah.
The metric system. Remember, okay, Ray, you do.
I do.
Maybe the others in this room. But we children of the 60s and 70s were told.
That's right. Got to learn metric.
Because America's
It's what the
gonna
world.
convert.
It's what the whole world is doing.
And America's going to convert.
Right.
Right. And you know what? America didn't convert over to the metric system. Why? Because we have football.
That's exactly right.
Nobody's going to say Tom Brady passed for 700 meters. Okay?
That's right. We don't even know what that is.
Nobody's going to say Albert Pujols hit a 20-meter home run.
That's the whole 8.22 meters.
No, we're not doing that.
No.
No.
Huh?
No.
We're going with feet.
You can take a lot of stuff from us, but not
Right.
that.
No, we're
Not
going with
that.
feet. We're going with miles. Huh? We're not going to switch over to
America.
It's America.
America. That's right. First down. 10 yards, friends. 10 yards.
That's it.
That's
Not
right.
3 meters.
It's a game of inches, guys, not centimeters.
And what a pass by Brady for 3 meters.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing that.
No.
Okay.
Whatever happened to Lincoln Chaffee? You remember him? He ran for the Democratic nomination in 2016. Former Republican.
What happened to him? I
but
don't remember.
He was a big proponent of metric system, and he got mocked.
Well, that's
for
why
it.
you don't hear from him again anymore. Huh? You start championing the metric system, your political aspirations are dead in this
You're
country.
done. You're finished.
Former governor of Rhode Island, he was.
Yeah.
Which is not an island. But I
Go back
digress.
to England if you want the metric system.
Right. You go. That's right, Ray. Just go back to where you came from.
That's right.
All right. What's your next story, Chris?
Oh, man, we've got so much. I don't want to leave anything out. You guys did Michael Rappaport in the earlier show. So let's do this. Fox had a story out today that involves Bill Gates, which everybody knows he has a big foundation, and they have been pouring money into all kinds of liberal and leftist causes. Fox had a story out today. I'll share the link here in a moment. Apparently, a group called Parents Defending Education has determined that Bill Gates' money founded efforts in Washington state that claimed outrageous things such as teaching math principles is white supremacy. It sounds like this is one of those things where it sounds like an April Fool's joke or it sounds like something from the Babylon Bee. But I can tell you from AFN.net, we have been covering outrageous things like this where teaching math is racist, and therefore we need to change how we do stuff.
Who does this? Where?
This is happening in Washington State.
Well, there you go. I mean, they got 7 sane people in the state of Washington. They live in Sunnyside.
Yes. And to across the border, this is just happening today, and we've previewed this a little bit. We'll follow up later today and tomorrow or this week. Oregon has gone back to actually recriminalizing drugs. They were one of those states that said,
You know what? No wonder the central and eastern parts of Oregon and Washington want to leave and join Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Because Seattle and Portland have whacked out communists, Ray.
They've lost their minds.
They've lost their minds.
Yeah.
And in Portland, I know they're trying to reverse themselves a little bit because they've had these open air drug usage.
Yeah.
And you got homelessness, going nuts over there, and crime's out of control because these utopian, quote, progressive liberal ideas don't work. They don't work, and it's leading to a serious decline in the quality of life in Seattle and in Portland in particular. In San Francisco's lost. I mean, you read about what's happening in downtown San Francisco. These stores that have been around in downtown San Francisco for 100 years, 50 years are closing. They're leaving. Have you read about this?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's anyway. So, anyway, go ahead. Next story.
One other thing here. You guys did not get into the minimum wage for some fast food workers with Fred, correct?
We did not.
I was in and out of the show, monitoring the show and doing some other stuff in the newsroom prior to coming in here and swapping out. Starting this week, California is now requiring some fast food restaurants to pay workers at least $20 an hour. And I say some fast food workers because it is written in the law to where California says if you are a fast food chain that has at least 60 locations nationwide, you, the owner of that franchise, have to pay somebody at least $20 an hour to work in that fast food restaurant, which, of course, is going to cause
What about stores that have less than 20? or 60 stores.
Like a
companies.
Yeah, they are not impacted yet, but that's one part of this story. We're going to hear far more about this year because those employees at those places not paying at least $20 are going to start asking for it.
This principle is true across the country. If you have to pay, the more you have to pay your employees, the more your product goes up. And listen, the a minimum wage, federal minimum wage law has been around forever, and I understand the reason for that. I mean, I was a minimum wage employee.
I was, yeah.
Who we all were, right, at one time.
Right.
And I appreciate it. Everybody appreciated it. I think when I started, it was like $3.50 or something like that. Oh, what is it? $10 now?
It's $7.25 nationwide.
Now,
the federal one.
Several. Anyway, that won't even buy a gallon of gas.
Yeah.
But anyway, but you start making companies pay $20 an hour for every employee. McDonald's, for example, or Wendy's, their hamburgers are going to be double.
Right, and that's one part of this story because franchise owners are the ones that are paying the employees, not McDonald's.
That's unfair to McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King, these other companies. Because they're forced to pay more just because they have how many?
They have at least 60 locations nationwide.
Okay, well that's not going to work. Okay,
Yeah.
They're going to rescind that in California because that's not going to work.
Now, bear in mind that at the beginning of this year, the minimum wage overall went up to $16, and then they went ahead and said, "Well, we're going to."
What you mean in California?
Yes, and then they went ahead and said, "Well, some fast food workers are going to get it," and this is where it gets really confusing. And God bless the person that runs a business in California because you're already dealing with higher regulations. Utility prices, all these things. Now you got to pay people $4 more to work an hour to flip a burger. Here's where it gets really confusing, and I would say laughable.
That was pretty demeaning right there because I flipped burgers.
I don't think
before,
so.
Chris,
I think you
and
just
we
keep going, Chris.
We did more. I worked at Burger King, and we burger flippers.
That's right. We got to stand together.
We're taken for granted.
Okay.
But anyway, I understand what you're saying, but that was hurtful.
But I'm sorry. I'm sorry if any of our listeners were offended. That was inappropriate.
You're making a point, though.
Here's where it gets really confusing. If you work at a place that bakes bread, fresh bread, you are, according to the Department of Industrial Relations, exempt from this requirement. So imagine a place that bakes and sells bread. They don't have to pay somebody $20, but the McDonald's next to them in the shopping center has to start paying $20. So
well, I got two words for you, Chris.
All over the place.
Here are the two words. Leave California.
Yes.
That's all I got to say about that. That's a mic drop moment right there. You know what? Again, like Washington State, like Oregon, California is lost to the liberal loonies, and so they're going to continue to come up with ideas that are destructive to their economy. And I guess they'll just have to learn the hard way, like they are with crime in those big cities out there, especially San Francisco and Los Angeles. They're just turning criminals out into the street, violent criminals that don't even put them in prison. Now I'm speaking broad. I'm speaking generally because the lax enforcement of the laws out there. Next story. I don't want to talk about California, Oregon, or Washington anymore, Chris.
Well, I will.
We only got 3 minutes. So.
Speaking of the economy, you might need a bump in pay to start paying for your gas. And I bring this up because some people.
More good news from Chris Woodward,
yes,
ladies and gentlemen.
I have a PhD in doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say things I shouldn't. But anyway,
right.
Do be advised that if you are taking a trip anywhere, especially in the next couple of weeks with a lot of people on the road to see the eclipse here, gas is going up. This has been an issue for a while. So do to plan accordingly. Look at various apps to help you find the cheapest prices. But today's national average is $3.53. A month ago, it was $3.33. We're not even in the busy portion of the year yet. It will be $4 and up come the summer.
Yeah. Chris, I'm give you an assignment for tomorrow.
Okay.
I want you to do one happy news story.
I can do that.
That everybody claps their hands and says, "Amen."
So
can you do that? I know you're not Captain Gloom and Doom.
Yeah.
Locust.
I can do that. No, I can do that.
Cicadas.
Give us a just find a place in America where gas prices went down today.
Okay.
Okay.
You're not going to find that.
There you go. Chris is right down.
Actually, I'm not at this point scheduled to be on for Wednesday, but I'll do it Thursday.
Thursday. All right. It's going to be a happy Thursday by Chris
Give
Woodruff.
an update of 8 Days of Hope or something, right?
Sunny days and Mondays.
Yeah.
Always. I will see you back here tomorrow.
Okay.
And my father, your great-grandfather, fought in World War II.
Really?
He was a gunner on the big ship out in the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
Your great-grandmother did her part, too.
Was she on a ship?
Oh, no. She stayed back home. She and a lot of her friends worked really hard in a factory because the men had gone off to war.
Ooh.
And they held scrap metal drives to help in the war effort. The folks back home were heroes, too.
Here at the American Family Association, we